Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The shame of losing control. Stop for a moment. Pause everything you are doing and reflect with complete honesty. Has there ever been a time when your emotions seized you so fiercely that you lost all control? Perhaps you remember shouting when silence would have been wiser, crying in a moment that demanded strength, or lashing out in anger when calm restraint was what the situation required. In those moments, something irreversible happens. People stop seeing you with respect. Their eyes shift, no longer filled with admiration or trust, but with pity, disdain, or even fear. And afterward, when the fire dies and clarity returns, you realize how much was lost in that single uncontrolled instant. The truth is uncomfortable. Respect once lost is not easily regained. Many try to comfort themselves with the idea that being emotional is the same as being authentic. They insist that expressing every feeling proves honesty and transparency. They say, "I am real because I show what I feel." But if that were true, why do these very same people fail to inspire respect? Why do they often appear weak, unstable, or unreliable to those around them? The answer is harsh, but undeniable. Nature, as Nietzsche pointed out, is merciless to those who cannot master themselves. For him, the person who fails to govern their emotions is no more than a slave, dragged through life by impulses they do not command. And in the eyes of the world, a slave is never respected. This realization hurts because it touches a raw nerve. No one wants to see themselves as weak. No one wants to admit that they have surrendered control of their life to storms of anger, waves of fear, or floods of sadness. Yet this is precisely what happens when emotions run unchecked. A person becomes predictable, like a puppet whose strings can be pulled by anyone who knows which button to press. And what is predictable can be manipulated. Think of it. How many times have you seen someone provoked into an outburst, and instead of appearing strong, they only revealed how easily they could be controlled? The person who shouts in rage at every criticism is not powerful, they are fragile, a glass that shatters at the lightest touch. The one who collapses into tears at every setback is not admirable, they are seen as unreliable. The one who panics when faced with fear is not authentic, they are paralyzed, unable to lead themselves, let alone others. This is the cruel reality. The world respects not those who feel the most, but those who govern what they feel. Talent, intelligence, kindness, even these virtues lose their weight if a person is seen as unstable, a hostage to emotional chaos. The storm inside them drowns out every other gift they might possess. And so, the question arises, what does it mean to truly master oneself? Here lies the great misunderstanding. Emotional control is often confused with repression. People imagine that to master their feelings means to kill them, to bury them under a mask of coldness, to become robotic and inhuman. They imagine emotional strength as indifference, an armor so hard that no joy, no sorrow, no passion can penetrate. But Nietzsche would have laughed at this mistake. He never preached the death of emotion. He never demanded that people become machines. On the contrary, he saw emotions as vital, raw, artistic forces, powerful energies that can destroy or elevate, depending only on the hand that wields them. To him, the tragedy was not in feeling deeply, but in being enslaved by what one feels. Emotional control, in his philosophy, is not the denial of life's passions, but the mastery of them, the ability to shape emotions into instruments of will. It is like the work of a sculptor. The raw marble is the wild, chaotic energy of emotion. Repression hides the marble in a cellar, pretending it does not exist. Mastery takes up the chisel and hammer, striking, shaping, refining, until the chaos becomes form, until the raw stone becomes something worthy of admiration. To master emotions is to transform fury into focus, pain into creativity, fear into courage, and sadness into depth. This is not emptiness, it is art. It is the difference between being lived by one's passions and living them consciously. And this is where respect begins. Because the truth is simple, even if it is rarely spoken aloud, people do not respect those who are slaves to impulse. They respect those who, in the face of provocation, remain steady. They admire the person who, though boiling with anger inside, chooses their words carefully and acts with intention. They trust the one who feels fear yet still takes decisive steps forward. They look up to the individual who feels sorrow but transforms it into compassion instead of collapse. This is the essence of true authority, the authority that begins with oneself. The person who governs their inner kingdom is respected in the outer world. And so, the first lesson stands: authenticity is not the same as losing control. To feel is human, but to master what one feels is divine. Respect is not given to the one who shouts the loudest or weeps the hardest, but to the one who transforms emotions into strength. The question that follows is inevitable: if emotions are not to be denied, then how can they be mastered? How can raw chaos be shaped into something powerful, creative, and respectable? The answer begins in the next chapter. The art of mastery, not repression. If chapter 1 revealed the shame of losing control, then here we arrive at the great confusion. Most people think emotional control means emotional repression. They imagine that to be strong is to be cold. They believe mastery demands the death of passion. They look at the man who does not cry, the woman who does not raise her voice, and they whisper, "How lifeless, how mechanical, how inhuman." This is a grave mistake. To repress is not to master. Repression is nothing more than fear in disguise. It hides emotion, locks it away, and pretends it doesn't exist, like shoving a wild beast into a cage without ever learning to tame it. The beast does not vanish, it only grows hungrier in the dark. And one day, when the cage breaks, its fury is worse than ever. Nietzsche saw through this illusion. For him, emotional strength was never about suffocation. It was about transformation. To master is not to silence the storm but to become its navigator. The sailor does not deny the sea, he studies it, respects it, and learns to ride its waves. In the same way, the strong man or woman does not pretend emotions are absent, they channel them, shape them, and make them serve their will. Think of anger. Left unchecked, it is destruction, burning bridges, shattering trust, leaving only ruins. Repressed, it festers, turning inward as resentment, bitterness, or even illness. But mastered, anger becomes focus. It sharpens the will, gives clarity to boundaries, fuels the energy to defend what must be defended. The same flame that could consume can, under control, illuminate. Or take fear. Uncontrolled, fear paralyzes. It shrinks the body, weakens the voice, chains the will. Repressed, fear festers into denial, the false bravado of someone who pretends they feel nothing, only to collapse at the first real challenge. But mastered, fear becomes prudence. It sharpens the senses, keeps one alert, prevents recklessness, and turns danger into strategy. Fear ceases to be a prison and becomes a compass. Even sadness holds this duality. When uncontrolled, it drags the spirit into despair, making life gray and heavy. Repressed, It hides beneath a false smile until it finally erupts as exhaustion or despair. But when mastered, sadness becomes depth. It softens the heart, nurtures compassion, inspires reflection, and can even birth art, poetry, and philosophy. What once weighed the soul down can be transformed into something that lifts others up. This is the essence of mastery, it is alchemy. The philosopher did not call for robots without feeling but for artists of the soul. To repress emotion is to bury raw marble in the basement, never to be touched. To master emotion is to sculpt it into a statue worthy of admiration. One is denial, the other is creation. And yet, this distinction is difficult for many to grasp because repression feels easier in the short term. It is quicker to lock the door on anger than to shape it into focus. It is simpler to deny fear than to confront it and make it useful. It is more comfortable to cover sadness with distraction than to channel it into compassion or art. But repression is always fragile, it delays the explosion, it never prevents it. Mastery, however, requires discipline. It demands self-awareness, honesty, and patience. It is the willingness to feel the storm fully, without being drowned by it. It is choosing the right time and form for expression, rather than letting emotion choose for you. The difference is visible to the world. A person who represses appears stiff, disconnected, almost hollow. They may impress for a moment with their cold composure, but sooner or later, the cracks appear. A person who masters emotions, however, radiates something different. They are intense yet steady. They are alive, passionate, and deeply human, but their energy is never chaotic. Others instinctively sense their strength. They command respect not through force but through presence. This is why Nietzsche insisted that emotional control is not about killing feeling but about using it. Anger into strength. Fear into strategy. Sadness into depth. Passion into creation. These transformations are not illusions, they are choices, exercised by those who refuse to be ruled by their inner chaos. Here lies the dividing line between repression and mastery. Repression says, do not feel. Mastery says, feel fully, but direct the feeling. Repression is fear of the beast. Mastery is taming the beast and riding it to victory. And so, the challenge grows clearer. If emotions are wild, then they are also raw energy. The question is not whether they exist but whether we command them or they command us. The answer leads us forward. What, then, are these emotions at their core? Why do they strike with such force, overwhelming reason and shaking the body? What is their true nature, and how can they be used as power instead of prisons? This is the mystery we turn to next, the storms within. The storms within. Inside every human being, beneath the polite surface of daily life, there exists a landscape of storms. These storms are emotions, raw, untamed, and vast in their power. They are not fleeting shadows to be dismissed but elemental forces of nature. Anger is fire, consuming and uncontrollable. Fear is an earthquake, shaking the foundations of certainty. Sadness is a flood, rising slowly until it drowns the spirit. And joy, even joy, can be a gale so strong it sweeps away reason. We often like to imagine ourselves as rational creatures, steady captains of our choices. But Nietzsche pointed to an uncomfortable truth: most of what we do, say, or think arises long before reason arrives on the scene. Emotions rush forward like a tide, pulling us along before the intellect can even raise its voice. Logic, in most cases, does not lead, it follows, attempting to justify what emotion has already decided. Consider anger. It does not politely knock at the door of the mind, it bursts through. The breathing quickens, fists clench, eyes harden. The body itself transforms in seconds, preparing for fight or destruction. In this state, the urge to act is nearly irresistible, to shout, to strike, to prove a point at all costs. Many call this authenticity, but Nietzsche saw it differently. To explode in anger is not strength, it is surrender. It proves that the individual is not in command but commanded, not a master but a slave. And yet, he did not despise anger. Quite the opposite. He recognized that anger contains vital energy, a fire that, if harnessed, could fuel courage, sharpen focus, and lend determination to the will. The same blaze that devastates can also illuminate, if only it is directed instead of unleashed blindly. Fear is another storm. It crawls into the chest, weakens the knees, and clouds the voice with hesitation. For many, fear becomes an immovable wall. They avoid challenges, retreat from risks, and let their lives shrink smaller and smaller until safety becomes a prison. To Nietzsche, this was tragedy, not because fear is evil, but because it was misunderstood. Fear is an ancient signal, a warning light from the depths of survival. When mastered, it becomes prudence. It teaches caution, strategy, preparation. Fear alerts us to danger, but it was never meant to be the master of the house. When it dictates every choice, respect is lost, not just from others, but from oneself. Sadness, too, is a profound force. Left uncontrolled, it can weigh the soul until every step feels unbearable. It makes the world appear gray, the future hollow, and the present suffocating. Many who drown in sadness are dismissed as fragile, unable to endure life's weight. But Nietzsche saw another path. He believed sadness was fertile soil. From it can grow compassion, reflection, and even art. The poet, the philosopher, the artist, all have drawn from this deep well. When shaped, sadness gives rise to beauty and wisdom. But when left unchecked, it becomes a swamp that swallows everything in silence. These storms, anger, fear, sadness, joy, are not enemies. They are not flaws to be cut out. They are forces of nature, as much a part of human existence as storms are part of the sky. The problem arises only when they govern instead of serve. For in their wild form, they make a person predictable. And predictability is weakness. A person who explodes with anger whenever provoked is no longer dangerous, they are a puppet, easily controlled by anyone who knows which string to pull. The man who lets fear dictate every step is not careful, he is enslaved, paralyzed, and easily dominated. The woman who drowns in sadness, unable to rise, is not profound, she is vulnerable, unable to resist the weight of life. Nietzsche's warning was sharp, those who cannot master their storms are condemned to be ruled by them. And the one who is ruled is never respected. But those who transform their storms into tools become something different. Anger becomes courage, fear becomes prudence, sadness becomes wisdom, joy becomes creation. These people stand apart, not because they lack storms, but because they have learned to command them. They are the captains who steer the ship through chaos, the sculptors who carve beauty from raw stone, the masters who rule their own kingdom within. And so we come to a turning point. If emotions are storms, then humanity divides itself into two groups, those who are blown about by every wind, and those who harness the winds to sail forward. Nietzsche called them the reactive man and the active man. One reacts, tossed about by provocation, trapped in cycles of anger, fear, or despair. The other acts, directing his emotions like instruments, shaping life instead of being shaped by it. This division, as we shall see, is not merely a matter of temperament, it is the very line between weakness and strength, between those who live small and those who leave a mark upon the world. Reactive man versus active man. Up to this point, we have seen that emotions are storms within us, forces that can destroy or elevate depending on who commands them. Now we arrive at one of Nietzsche's most profound insights: humanity can be divided into two kinds of people. The reactive man and the active man. This division is not just about personality or mood. It is about whether a person lives as a slave to circumstance or as a master of their inner world. The reactive man is the most common. He is tossed about like a leaf in the wind, living not by his own will but by the push and pull of everything around him. Praise lifts him high, criticism drags him low. A cruel word can shatter his spirit, while a kind word inflates his pride. He is ruled by what others say, do, or even think of him. His mood changes as quickly as the weather. When provoked, he explodes with rage. When ignored, he sinks into resentment. When afraid, he retreats. When flattered, he becomes arrogant. He is always reacting, never truly deciding. His identity, his worth, his very sense of being are shaped by others as though he were clay in their hands. He believes he is authentic, but in truth, he is predictable. And predictability is weakness. Anyone who knows how to press his buttons can control him. Nietzsche saw this as a tragic waste. The reactive man spends his life in a defensive posture, responding to insults, justifying himself, seeking approval, or nursing wounds. His energy is consumed not in creation but in reaction. Because he never truly acts, he never leaves a mark. He becomes a shadow of others' expectations, a mirror reflecting the world instead of shaping it. And for this reason, he is rarely respected. People may fear his temper or pity his fragility, but admiration does not follow him. In stark contrast stands the active man. He too feels anger, fear, and sadness, but he does not allow them to dictate his choices. When provoked, he observes before acting. When afraid, he considers whether the fear is a real warning or simply an obstacle to be overcome. When sadness visits, he does not collapse into despair but uses it to deepen his understanding of himself and others. The active man does not repress emotions, he transforms them. Anger becomes fuel for determination. Fear sharpens into strategy. Sadness ripens into wisdom. He uses each force as an instrument, shaping his destiny rather than being shaped by circumstance. This ability creates a presence others cannot help but notice. In the active man there is solidity, an inner strength that inspires confidence. He cannot be easily provoked into rashness. He cannot be manipulated by flattery or paralyzed by fear. He radiates steadiness, as though he were a fortress within himself. Others may not understand how he holds such composure, but they feel it. And what they feel is respect. Nietzsche linked this directly to what he called the will to power, not power in the vulgar sense of dominating others, but the power to shape oneself, to expand, to create, to impose form upon chaos. The reactive man has no such will, he bends under pressure. The active man, however, asserts himself against both inner storms and outer challenges. He is not merely surviving, he is sculpting life according to his design. It is important to note that no one is born purely active or purely reactive. This is a battle within every person. One may be reactive in certain areas, perhaps in relationships or under criticism, but active in others, such as work or personal discipline. The challenge is to expand the realm of mastery until one's entire life is shaped by choice, not impulse. The transformation is not easy. It demands self-awareness, discipline, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. It requires training the mind to pause before reacting, to observe before acting, to decide consciously rather than lash out blindly. But the reward is profound. The one who becomes active earns respect, not only from others, but from themselves. The difference between the two types is visible in daily life. Watch a workplace, and you will see the reactive man snapping at small provocations, sulking when overlooked, boasting when praised. You will see the active man working with focus, responding with calm, speaking with intention. Watch a family, and you will see the reactive one drowning in jealousy or resentment, while the active one steadies the household with patience. Watch society, and you will see that leaders are never those who merely react. True leaders are active men and women, sculptors of chaos, commanders of themselves. And here lies the lesson: respect cannot be begged, demanded, or faked. It flows naturally toward the active man, because strength cannot be hidden. People may not articulate it, but they sense it. They bow inwardly to the one who has proven mastery over themselves. The next question is deeper still. What is the force that makes this possible? What lies at the heart of the active man's mastery? Nietzsche gave it a name: the will to power. And it is this inner principle, more than talent or intelligence, that determines whether one commands life or is commanded by it. The path to true respect. We have seen the shame of losing control, the difference between repression and mastery, the storms of emotion that dwell within us, and the division between the reactive man and the active man. Now we arrive at the heart of it all, the force that underlies mastery itself. Nietzsche called it the will to power. This phrase is often misunderstood. Many imagine it means the crude hunger to dominate others, to rise in status, or to collect wealth. But Nietzsche's vision was deeper. The will to power is not about ruling others, it is about ruling oneself. It is the primal, biological force within every living thing that seeks growth, expansion, and self-overcoming. The tree grows toward the sun. The animal defends its territory. Humanity creates culture, art, and philosophy. All of these are expressions of the same will, the desire to rise above limitation, to shape chaos into order, to impose meaning upon existence. And here lies the tragedy: those who cannot master their emotions betray this will. When someone explodes in anger, collapses in fear, or drowns in sadness, they reveal that their inner kingdom is in revolt. They are not commanding, they are being commanded. Their will to power has failed at its most essential point: power over the self. This is why respect is never given to the one who loses control. Outbursts are not signs of strength but of weakness, because they expose the truth: I cannot govern myself. And no one who cannot govern themselves can be trusted to govern anything else. Respect does not flow to instability. It flows to strength, and strength here does not mean brute force, it means inner solidity. Think about the figures you admire most in history or even in your own life. They are rarely those who shouted the loudest or raged the fiercest. They are the ones who stood steady when chaos erupted around them. They are the ones who could remain calm under pressure, who transformed their emotions into clarity and decisive action. This steadiness is magnetic. It inspires trust, confidence, even awe. It is what Nietzsche meant by true authority. To reach this level of mastery is not easy. It requires practice, daily, deliberate practice. It requires the willingness to confront emotions honestly, not hide from them. It requires the discipline to pause when provoked, to breathe when anger rises, to examine fear before it dictates action, to use sadness without being consumed by it. Each moment of self-command is like lifting a weight, it strengthens the will. The path begins with awareness. Most people live unaware of how predictable they are. They do not realize that anyone who knows their triggers can manipulate them like puppets. The first step to mastery is to notice, when do I lose control? In what situations do I become reactive? Is it under criticism? In moments of insecurity? When provoked by insult? Awareness turns the invisible strings visible, and once seen, they can be cut. The next step is discipline. To feel an emotion and not act on it blindly is an act of training. It does not mean denying the feeling, it means holding it, shaping it, choosing the form of its expression. The one who succeeds at this begins to radiate something unmistakable. Their presence commands respect. Others may not know why, but they sense it. This is the aura of inner mastery. Respect, then, is not demanded. It cannot be begged or forced. It is earned silently, through the demonstration of self-control. The person who governs themselves proves by example that they will not be easily swayed, provoked, or manipulated. They become reliable, stable, and worthy of trust. And trust, once given, becomes the foundation of respect. Nietzsche's vision was harsh but liberating. Life does not pity those who are weak in spirit, but it rewards those who shape themselves. The man or woman who sculpts their emotions into power does not need to ask for respect. Respect follows them like a shadow. This is why he urged us not to repress but to master, not to deny but to transform. The goal is not cold indifference but passionate control. It is to live fully, angry, joyful, sorrowful, fearful, but never as a slave to these forces. Instead, to ride them, direct them, use them as fuel for creation and strength. And so the path to true respect is not outward but inward. It begins with the will to power over oneself. It begins with the courage to face the storms within and to declare, I will command, not obey. Those who succeed in this become more than mere survivors, they become creators. They do not just live, they leave a mark upon the world. Respect cannot be bought. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be faked. It can only be earned by proving mastery over the most difficult territory of all, the self. This, Nietzsche reminds us, is the supreme power, to govern one's own emotions, to remain sovereign within the inner kingdom, and through that sovereignty, to inspire trust, admiration, and genuine respect from the world.